Exactly. So hello and welcome to the Alpha Artist Interview Series, Bringing Art into Your Home. I'm Renata Tome, your host for this webinar and a co-founder at Alpha, a B2B crowdsourced and purpose-driven art platform. So this initiative has the objective to highlight some of the most interesting artists we have on the platform. And the idea is to enlighten artists and collectors who can benefit from working with us. For today's webinar, we have the artist Rebecca Kaufman. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much, Renata.
Of course. So first, can you tell us where you're spending your quarantine days and what has changed for you since the pandemic started?
Yeah, I am in San Francisco now. My studio is about a 20-minute drive south of me. I'm very fortunate because not a whole lot has changed. I kind of live a lot of my life in isolation as it is. So I still have access to my studio because it's actually in the cellar of an apartment building. So it's in a residential area, which I'm pretty grateful for. You know, the only thing I really miss is teaching. I volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club in the Tenderloin once a week, and I don't get to see those kids at all anymore. And, you know, I just really, it pains me to not be interacting with kids and adults, you know, in a classroom setting, but I am doing some teaching online, and that's been okay. But yeah, I mean, I think it's probably very similar to everybody else, you know, just taking one day at a time and really trying to take good care of my mental health, you know, and I feel very lucky to be here where I can exercise, go outside and go on hikes and see some really beautiful things, you know, footsteps away from my home. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a privilege and something that we are all appreciating way more now. So we're big fans of your work, but for those who do not know you as an artist, can you talk a little bit about your practice, like, and maybe a bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah. A bit about my background. I grew up in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in East Tennessee. So my mom was an artist. My aunts were all artists, and I come from a long line of quilters. And then on my dad's side, I grew up Jewish, and so I have this like very strange mix of an understanding about the Jewish diaspora and growing up in the South, which is sort of a strange combination. I went to the University of Tennessee, where I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I studied painting there. And then in 2015, I moved out here to go to San Francisco Art Institute to pursue an MFA in studio art. And I mostly concentrated on painting again. But my practice is primarily, I like to say, it's in the event of seeing. So I spend a lot of time doing very repetitive process to build up these optical field paintings. And most of them are pretty large scale. Lately, I've been working at around 5 by 5 feet. I work on panels. I cover the panels in canvas. And usually my paintings are about a 10-layer process. I'm really focused on spirituality and like the immateriality of painting. And how that is, how I can kind of pull from the history of abstract painting and bring that into a more current landscape. So I'm really interested in addressing technology also. And so I'm really interested in how I can visually grapple with the notion of consent in terms of both public and private spaces, thinking mostly about like data mining and these very invasive technologies that we all are like really heavily relying on today. Yeah.
Very interesting. And can you describe a little bit more about your creative process? Like when you're making one of those beautiful paintings. How do you usually go, like, and maybe like has anything changed now for you, like during this time, like?
Yeah, you know, it's not much has really changed in terms of the processes that I'm doing. I am finding it a little more difficult to have as much energy in the studio. I feel very, you know, it's coming in waves. I think a lot of people are dealing with it this way with COVID. Is, you know, some days you're feeling very energetic and enthusiastic and positive. And then the next day it's like you can do nothing. So just sort of like trying to be really kind to myself around that. But typically my creative process starts in the sketchbook. I make drawings. I have ideas. They're very general, like little line drawings, sort of trying to map out what a composition may look like. And then I take that into the studio and I do some experiments with color. And then I really just kind of get started, and sometimes I have an idea of how things are going to go in my mind's eye and they turn out completely different. And I sort of just, I really appreciate that about my practice, because while it looks very planned, it's very intuitive, and a lot of looking and spending time just kind of asking it what it wants to be, rather than, you know, making it very directly and by the book. Yeah.
And Rebecca, can you talk about one painting or one artwork that you consider to be to have had like an impact in your career, like, or that like you would like to highlight for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like me to share the painting on my screen?
Well, if you can, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Let's see. So I started, I'll talk briefly while I'm looking, but I started this series of, these optical field paintings, and it was, I don't think it was a coincidence, but it was right when Trump got elected, unfortunately. And I started making, let's see, I started making these really, sorry, I thought I had it. I started making these really wild.
It's great for us to see more of your work, so take your time.
Okay.
And I can definitely see the more like now that you mentioned technology, but like an influence, like maybe like a bit of like digital art, like as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, you know, they jump around a lot. I sort of oscillate between like this more rigid practice and then, you know, doing something that's a little bit more, more free. And then I sort of like go back in and police it with these lines. I use a lot of airbrush in my practice, and sometimes I'll use spray paint. I don't particularly like to use spray paint because it doesn't, I can't choose the color myself. I can't mix it myself. So like this painting, for instance, is a layer of one solid color, and then some spray paint marks. And then this is a silk screen on top, actually. So I like to experiment too with different modes of printmaking. I love printmaking. It's the process is just so special to me. It's so specific, and it has to be this like really, I don't know, there are all these rules that you have to follow, and I just love to break those rules because why not? Let's see. It's coming up here soon. It's kind of far back. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so I'd like to talk a little bit about this painting. It's called End of Line. I experienced a lot of death in my family from 2011 until about 2017. I lost, it was a wild number. I know it sounds made up, but I lost about 11 very close people in my life to various things. And I started thinking a lot about death and a lot about, you know, what happens. And I talked to my dad at one point. We were confiding in each other about this, and he was telling me about his near-death experience. when I was about 9, his colon ripped and he was bleeding inside and he lost like so much blood, and he claims that he saw the other side, and it was just like this really beautiful description and of this sort of event horizon. And I started thinking a lot about that, and like, you know, what would it be like to represent that in painting? And so I ended up making this piece, and it's really large. It's actually my wingspan. So it's 67 by 84 inches, which is about 5 feet 7 inches by, I don't know, very big.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just really, it was one of those things that it's such a simple painting, but it really sucks you in this very strange way. And despite, you know, all these very straight lines, it started to create, like, if you see it in person, it starts to create these very weird, like, concentric circles that start to happen.
Yeah.
And anyway, so after that, I started, you know, I was like, I don't need to represent technology directly. I can be my own technology and use tape and line and geometry to really create these more three-dimensional moments. So
yeah, it's interesting to think that the result has this idea of like a technology made image, but it's very crafty, like, and it's you like in your studio, like creating all of those lines, and the result is beautiful. So congrats again. We're big fans of your work. I was gonna ask you like about an inflection point in your career, but I think you just described that. So maybe like, how are you feeling this current crisis that we're all going through, like in like your creative process, where are you looking for inspiration? And if you could possibly share something which has been inspiring for you and which has been helpful to keep your spirit high, like in a way.
yeah, absolutely. You know, I think for me, it's, yeah, a lot of stuff is coming up in this time, of course, and I think everybody agrees with that. But yeah, I think something that's been really healthy for me to do, in lieu of obsessively listening to the news, which is what I was doing at the beginning of this crisis, I've been listening to a lot of public radio, like not NPR public radio, but like local San Francisco radio stations that are nonprofits. Like there's one that I really love. It's called BFF FM, so it's Best Frequencies Forever, and it's really cute. It's like there are different radio shows, and everybody who does a radio show there doesn't get paid, and they're just working from home, and it's still live, and it's really great. It's like there's something so comforting about radio that's like so localized, and just it just feels so, it gives me the warm and fuzzies and makes me feel very much connected to other people, which is something that I think we're all really longing for in this time. So yeah.
Absolutely, and we are all turning to the arts, not only the visual arts, but every type of art out there to maintain like our like minds healthy, like, and to remain optimistic, like in a way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've been thinking about that a lot. I think that there are good things that'll happen with the art world after this, because I think more people will start to realize how much they appreciate their surroundings, you know, and how much they appreciate their homes and what they have on their walls, and, you know, the movies and the TV and everything that we consume is art, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think speaking about that, could you tell us a little bit how you see your work developing looking forward, and maybe like start by sharing a bit about your experience of working with Alpha, like, and our collaboration, how it has been for you, and how do you imagine this collaboration in your work in a more general way moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I think Alpha is one of these amazing platforms that has the capacity to really see into the future and realize that even before COVID, accessibility to expensive luxury items such as artwork is low, and the vast majority of the population out there can't afford to collect original paintings. I mean, I could never afford my own work, and it's really beautiful to be a part of this sort of platform, and yeah, and I think for my work, it's going more in this direction, and I really appreciate that. I think it's like a wonderful way for me to survive as an artist financially, and also like spiritually. It boosts me to know that people are out there and can appreciate my work, and I can still have the original, or maybe it's like a piece that's so small and never leaves my studio, but other people can see and appreciate it and love it in their homes. So it's really special, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, and we're definitely grateful to have you as a collaborator. We couldn't be happier. And for those who do not know, Rebecca has a series of artworks offered on our platform as a limited edition print. One of those is End of Line, the painting that she was showing to us before. So please check it out. And Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us today. It has